I'm sure you're relieved to know the sun was just a baseball hat.
So are we good?
I'm just looking, Sarah, are we up?
6, 5, 4, 3. Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome back. So I'd like to make a suggestion. We're looking at presentation and consideration of reports. At this point in time, seeing that we have individuals from the junior hockey club, I'd like to move 12.1.4 and move it up at this point in time. So let's deal with that particular thing first.
Okay.
And that way Tim can continue on with his day, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2023-0199, Town Solicitor MCC revised draft license agreement, Pelham Panthers Hockey Club Limited and Pelham Junior Hockey Club for information, and that Council authorizes and directs the town to enter into a license agreement with Pelham Panthers Hockey Club Limited in the form attached hereto, and that Council authorizes and directs the town to enter into a license agreement with Pelham Junior Hockey Club for concession and vending machine operation at the Meridian Community Centre in the form attached hereto. Back to you for discussion and determination.
Okay, thank you. And any councillor like to make any comments with respect to this report? Seeing none, I'll turn it to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if there's no questions or concerns from council at this time, we could proceed with the vote.
Okay, perfect. So all those in favor? That's unanimous, so that's carried. So
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That was painless.
You waited all this time for that. Okay.
2 weeks, we play at home again. Great seeing some of you out. Love to see everybody else out again.
Thanks, Tim.
Appreciate it.
So now moving back to item 12.1.1, I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2023-0189, proposed 2024 council meeting schedule for information, and that the 2024 council meeting schedule as appended to the report be approved, and that council direct staff to publish the 2024 council meeting schedule to the Town of Pelham website. Earlier, you would have got an email from the deputy clerk saying, unfortunately, the schedule didn't attach to the agenda, but it has been circulated to you, so we're prepared to answer any questions. The big items in that are consideration and discussion around the summer council schedule. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, for discussion and questions.
Okay, so anyone have any comments or questions with respect to this report? Councillor Niznik.
Yes, so are we discussing option 1 or option 2 with regards to the number of summer meetings?
Yes, so that and I'll make some comments around March break too, but the predominant thing is has to do with the summer meetings. So it's up to us to determine what the schedule looks like. And the last couple of years, we've been running with 2 meetings in July and 1 meeting in August, plus the public meetings. So it's up to council's desire whether they want to keep the status quo, or would you like to go to 2 meetings each month or 1 meeting each month? So just some comments with respect to your desires.
Right, thank you. So having lived through a year now of attending meetings, I do think that 2 summer meetings would be sufficient, 1 in July and then 1 in August. So I would be in favor of that rather than 2 in July and 1 in August. I think we could eliminate the 1 in July. and just move to one each month for those months. Those are, busy summer months for a lot of folks, and the agendas seem to be smaller at those times. And then, so I think we could manage to have one agenda in July, and then in addition to the planning meetings and those other public meetings that do occur is fine. And then just while I'm on the thing with regards to March break, I'm fine with shifting that to the fourth Wednesday of the month to accommodate those who have family who like to participate in March break activities. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for those comments. Councillor Eckert.
I agree with Councillor Niznik. I have no issue with having one meeting in July and one in August, as well as the regular planning meetings, as she said. The mayor has the ability to call a special meeting, which I'm sure most of us would attend, or if not all, if any emergency arose. So that covers that. We're not limiting it to two. We're just scheduling two, and there could be additions to that. So, and as well as I support the idea around March break. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I am in full agreement with my fellow councillors.
Thank you. And Councillor Olson.
Deputy Mayor, yes, I'm in agreement as well.
Okay, thank you for those comments. My only question zeroes in on March break. March break is in the second week of March, not the third week. So our regular scheduled meeting would be, let's see, we've got the 27th, so would have been the 20th. When we bump March, the meeting to March 27th, we only have 1 week between March 27th and April 3rd. So those are my only comments. I know March break probably doesn't affect council as much. It's more along staff. So Mr. CAO asked for some comments from you with respect to that.
I commenced my employment here in 2019. That year, we did have a meeting in the March break, although I started after that. In 20, it became fairly apparent. Admittedly, we were shut down in COVID. So, in fact, we had a meeting during the infamous, the night of the night of the shutdown. We had a council meeting, as has been fairly well publicized over the years. And one of the takeaways from that was that, pandemic aside, that it did put a fair bit of from our perspective, from staff perspective, unnecessary strain and something that can be changed and cost $0. Councillor Wink does point out the best argument against making the change is that you end up with two meetings in 2 weeks. So that I cannot argue against that, but understanding that the week of the council meeting, from the staff perspective, it's all done. So this week is less onerous on staff than last week was. For us, the work is writing the reports, assembling the agenda, and that gets published, of course, on the Thursday prior. So that means the key working week is, in fact, March break. It's the meeting itself, although is important to the community. The actual work going into the document and the entire agenda is the week prior. So having a meeting during that time does have a negative impact upon staff of, well, I don't want to say just any given age, because we have people who are grandparents, like to travel with their grandchildren, or people with young families, as the case may be. That being said, the sun will rise and the sun will set, and if you keep the schedule as is, we will be able to produce an agenda. So it's not that it's impossible. It's a change we can make that costs $0 and is helpful for a number of people, but it does jam two council meetings in very close succession. And the deputy clerk has something she wants to say, and I have learned to stop because the number of errors she catches on my behalf is fantastic. I'll stop talking.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. There's also the possibility that council keeps council on March 20th and moves the public meeting to March 27th. Public meetings, of course, aren't fully confirmed until around that time, if that's all right with planning, of course. And that would circumvent having council occur twice in 2 weeks. So just switch the March 20th and March 27th.
It is.
Yeah, so just being the devil's advocate, that still means that staff have to prepare for that new March 20th council meeting.
Well, your staff are obligated.
Staff are obligated, of course, to adhere to the procedural bylaw, and it calls us to create a document that looks like this. I mean, you could hypothetically just reduce one council meeting. Between the 27th and the 3rd, there might not be anything of enormous significance.
Well, that's part of my fear too, that April 3rd, there's not going to be much for an agenda if we're back to back. So there is an opportunity to eliminate one of those meetings. So just want to know what the desires of council are. So the question is, we've got two options. We keep the 27th and April 3rd, or we just go to the 27th and skip April 3rd. Councillor Eckert?
Yeah, looking at that, between the meeting on the 27th and April 17th, it's less than 3 weeks between meetings. So it may very well be. And is that a decision that needs to be made now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether to eliminate one of those council meetings?
Right.
So we're looking at eliminating the April 3rd.
Correct.
So there's still only just a couple of weeks between meetings there.
Correct.
And if something came up, we can always call a special meeting.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Nisnik?
Yes, so given the words from our CAO and Councillor Eckert, I think I can support eliminating Wednesday, April 3rd council meeting.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion on that?
No, we've captured the changes
Okay.
and we can incorporate it within the resolution, Councillor.
So any other? See Councillor Olson nodding his head.
Yes,
so
yes, I am nodding my head, yes.
So that's as good as your hand going up. So, Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm also in agreement with that.
Okay. So, yeah, absolutely. So, we've given direction to staff. So, I'll turn to the clerk for.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have the resolution on the floor. We've incorporated the changes as discussed by council, so we can proceed to the vote.
So, all those in favor? Unanimous, so it's carried.
Thank you. Moving now to item 12.1.2. I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0187 EV charging stations pay for service report for information, and that council approves the usage fees to be included in the 2023 user fee and rate guide for the level 2 EV and level 3 EV chargers, and that council approved the net revenue acquired by the town from the electric vehicle charging station user fee to be put into the Fleet Reserve Fund for the purpose of expanding and maintaining the electric vehicle charging station network, and that the parking bylaw be amended to restrict parking in the designated spaces for EV chargers only.
Okay, so any comments or questions from council? Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I'd like to address the use of the parking spots for EV vehicles, because generally they're always, no matter where you go, they're the prime spots. And at big events, that's where you want to park. The province has addressed this through the Traffic Act, and I'll be talking to Ms. Sturton with regards to confirming that what I read on the internet is correct, because a lot of stuff I read on the internet, sometimes I'm wondering. But anyway, the Traffic Act, according to what I see online, is that there's a $125 fine if you're parked in the parking spot and you're not charging. So you have to be charging, and it has to be actively charging. You just can't go there, hook up your car and pretend you're charging and leave your car there. So maybe Ms. Sturton could comment on that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hildebrand. That's mostly correct, with one minor amendment. Section 30.2 of the Highway Traffic Act, which was enacted in 2019, says that no person shall park a vehicle in an electric vehicle charging station identified by a sign that satisfied the prescribed requirements, which I'll get to in just a moment, unless the vehicle is an electric vehicle and the vehicle is attached to the charging equipment. So it doesn't require active charging by the sounds of things, although I don't know if you can be connected and not charging, as you suggested. And then the Act goes on to say that a person who contravenes that requirement is guilty of an offence and on conviction is liable to a fine of $125. So that would be a provincial matter under the Highway Traffic Act. There is a corresponding regulation that prescribes the requirements for the signage in an EV parking spot, and that would have to be in place in order for the Highway Traffic Act prohibition to apply. And also, while I have the floor, I would just note that the town property parking bylaw also allows the town to post signs stating conditions pursuant to which a vehicle can park in a lot, and a contravention of that bylaw would result in an administrative penalty, or possibly an administrative penalty, certainly.
I've reviewed other municipalities' policies with regards to charging stations, and that's one of the requirements. You have to actively charging. And the app, I'm going to be talking to the Public Works Director.
Certainly, I don't know the mechanics of how the EV charging stations would work, and I'll defer to Mr. Marr on that. But I do know that the legislation doesn't require active charging; it simply requires connection. Whether those two things are mutually exclusive or not, I simply don't know.
Passing over to the Public Works Director, I'm in agreement with your hourly charging rate of $2 and $22 for level 3. And I'm also asking the question with regards to when that vehicle is parked there, does he need an app to park there? Is that the way this is going to work?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So my understanding is that you will pay for the charging service for the prescribed number of hours, the maximum of 3. At the end of that period of time, there's no more charge. It doesn't continue to charge. The machine shuts down. So there will be some enforcement required to regulate that. But from my understanding, the actual charging unit itself, it's a pay for fee service. And once that time limit has expired, the charging stops.
Okay. When reviewing the policies for other municipalities, I noticed that their policies require the individual to have the app that the town applies to it. B, that app is a very smart app. It actually tells the user when the charging is stopped, sends them a message, and it also provides all kinds of data to the municipality with regards for that app. So based on those comments and some other comments I may have, is you're asking for a review in 1 year. I think the policy should be reviewed in 6 months. I think 1 year is too long to go with such an important policy, because I think you attend many arenas, and I'm sure you've seen these parking spots being used by these EV charging guys, supposedly charging. And they're a prime spot at arenas when you got big hockey games. So I'm not sure what your comment would be on that.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I agree that there's going to be a review of the usage of the EV charging stations and how the parking is handled for those. Obviously, these are new to the town of Pelham. It's the first time we've installed them, so obviously there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there. And I agree that there will have to be a review of the policies and bylaws, whether it's 6 months or a year, but there will need to be a review once we get into it and see what the usage is and how they're being used.
Thank you.
So the CAO's got some comments he'd like to add.
I'm afraid I don't personally have the knowledge as to whether or not you directly need an app. Certainly you need a credit card. The staff member who did those sort of negotiations is unavailable today. But we can ultimately provide you with the answer to that. That's a very fair question. I'm sorry I can't answer it. May I suggest, we suggested 12 months for a reason, but I also certainly hear what Councillor Hildebrand has to say. Could we saw off at a 9-month sort of review? To us, the reason we asked for 12 was that we'd like to have we'd like to have 4 seasons, but we'd at least like to have 3 seasons, and the critical one is next summer, because like right now, we have 0 charging stations, and I think anytime we introduce something new, it might take a little while to get it going and people get used to its existence. And I just feel like Q1 and to a lesser extent Q2 aren't prime tourist season, and I think people do less traveling, or at least less road traveling. That tends to be on airplanes to southern destinations, right? So we'd really like to have a summer fest and a summer concert series, et cetera, all of that sort of experience to see whether to see what the utilization is. So if it's council's will to amend or to direct when we report back, if we could at least have 9 months, that gives us till the end of the summer. We asked for 12 because we'd like to have one of everything before we try to land on the permanent policy. But we're certainly in your hands, and as you will. Thank you.
Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My comment would be. Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. My comment would be that it would be ideal to have a year, so I'd leave it the way it is, because we're just coming up to our budget year, so it's another item of the budget that could be more nailed down a little better, so I would leave it at that.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, whether it's a year or 9 months makes no difference to me. But the one question I do have is, have staff determined how you get those EV charging stations on the local map? Because I noticed when you look at the local map, you can see all the charging stations in Welland, Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, and all these kind of things. And that's critical if you've got an EV vehicle, other than a Tesla. I mean, a Tesla automatically does it. But all the other ones, you have to look it up on your phone. So I think that's another thing that we may want to look at.
Happy to take that. Happy to take that under advisement. We have an excellent, I have no idea how to do that. We have an excellent comms department that figures it out every single time. And one of them will get that done, I guarantee it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Niznik.
So just a question, I'm not sure anybody would even have the answer to this right now, but so if I own a electric vehicle and I want to charge it here at Town Hall, it would cost me, it's looking like $6 for a 3-hour charge. What's the cost of the electricity to charge that vehicle for those 3 hours? Do we have a cost analysis on what it costs to actually do it? So just to make sure we're covering the cost of at least electricity. I don't know if anyone has that answer through you, Deputy Mayor.
So, Mr. Marr, do you have some comments on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the actual cost of electricity itself, don't have that number. Councillor Hildebrand may have some better answers on that. But the rates that were established with other municipalities, namely St. Catharines, those rates are designed to cover the cost of electricity, but also allow for capital improvements and replacement in the future.
Okay, thank you. So I'll turn over to the hydro expert and Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The cost of electricity is almost nil. We're hooked to NPI here and Hydro One. Down here, our costs are about 12 cents per kilowatt, down kilowatt hour. Over there, it's slightly higher, so it's insignificant. Most of those costs associated with hydro have to do with the adjustment, and there's an adjustment fee on a commercial account, and those numbers are huge. That's like 54% of your hydro bill. We don't see that as residential customers, but as commercial customers, you see that on places like the MCC. So the actual hydro costs to the town are insignificant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I do have one question, and it's just a matter of interest. I do not own a electric vehicle, so can the Director of Public Works, can you explain to me the difference between a level 2 EV and a level 3 EV charger?
Yes, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So the level 2 charging stations, which will be located at Town Hall, it's a lower level of service. So it doesn't provide a rapid charge, considerably less expensive as well for the installation of those units. The level 3 chargers, which will be at the Meridian Community Center, are higher level of service, and you can have a full charge within 2 hours on a vehicle, whereas a level 2 charging station will take up to 8 hours to charge a vehicle fully.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have a resolution on the floor, moved and seconded, and have had the discussion, so we can proceed now to the vote.
Okay, so all those in favor of the report? And that again is unanimous, so that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving to item 12.1.3, moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Nisnik. Be it resolved, the Council receive report 2023-0192 for information, and the Council approve the vacation policy S600-22 as amended. To you for discussion.
So anyone have any comments with respect to this report? I, for one, was surprised to see that someone being hired only had 2 weeks vacation. You know, that's very antiquated in today's environment. So I certainly support this motion and the fact that we need to retain staff, and vacation is very important to staff. So yeah, I appreciate all the comments in this report. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. I was in a meeting with a large law firm yesterday, and we were talking about vacation policies and new young lawyers. And basically, they're confronted with the same issue. The lawyers of today aren't like the lawyers of yesterday, who would work till all hours of the day, trying to get their hours in for their thing. Now they want more free time and freedom. And they're having a hard time keeping these lawyers there because I guess the newer generations see life differently than we used to. I think that has occurred in all professions, not just in the legal or any of these other professions.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we could proceed with the vote on that resolution then?
So all those in favor? And again, unanimous, so that's carried.
Thank you. We have nothing under unfinished business or new business, so moving to item 15, the presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion moved by Councillor Nisnik and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the Mayor and Clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. Bylaw 51-2023 being a bylaw to stop up and close a portion of an unopened road allowance between concession 3 and Concession 4, Part Lot 1, 2, Concession 3, and Part Lot 1, Concession 4, Pelham. Bylaw 52-2023, being a bylaw to appoint members of the Environmental and Climate Adaptation Advisory Committee for the 22-26 term of council. Bylaw 53-2023, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 4481-2022 as amended to rezone lands located at 550 Weber Road, legally described as part of Lot 11, Concession 14, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, from the Rural Employment-72 Environmental Protection 1 EP1 and Rural Employment RE zones to the amended site-specific Rural Employment 72 Environmental Protection 1 EP1 and Rural Employment RE zones. Bylaw 54-2023, being a bylaw to adopt an official plan amendment number 19 for the Town of Pelham, planning bylaw 550 Weber Road, file number OP-AM-01223. And finally, bylaw 55-23, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 4481-2022 as amended to rezone lands located at 1039 Church Street, legally described as Part 2, 3 and 5, Plan 16, and Part 1, RP 59R 4712, part of Lot 11, Concession 14, Town of Pelham, Regional Municipality of Niagara, from the Residential 1 R1 zone to the site-specific Residential 1-148 Residential Multiple 2-149 and Environmental Protection 1 EP1 zones. So, Mr. Chair, I think I could do much better. If you want me to read through those again, I'd be happy to do so.
Well, I was about to say that if you could read through it again, but
That was a warm-up.
for the sake of moving the meeting along, you did a fine job. Thank you. So any counselors have any comments with respect to the presentation of bylaws? Seeing none, we put it to the vote. All those in favor? And that's unanimous, so that's carried.
Moving now to item number 19, which is the confirmatory bylaw. Sorry, 16, motions and notice of motions.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of myself. So we do have a notice of motion from Councillor Olson.
So Councillor Olson, you've got the
Yes,
floor.
thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to bring a motion the next meeting with respect to Centennial Park and safety concerns there. We've heard today from our budget presentations that people are going to be using the park more, I suspect, and has been remarkably successful. We actually probably got 10 years worth of work done in the last year of the last term of council there with a number of things that we put in. But it's created a situation, I think, where you've got young people, youngsters close to big vehicles, and I'd say too close to big vehicles, and it's creating a dangerous situation, in particular along the roadway coming in, and our perennial problem of speeding. And I mean, who speeds in a park with kids around? But they do it. And I'm seeking to find low-cost, quick solutions, including traffic calming devices and everything, and things like that, and sidewalks, and perhaps barriers. But I think it needs careful consideration about the barriers, because they just concentrate the kids in one spot, and that might be worse for us. So I'd like to get a report on what we can do to increase the safety in Centennial Park in particular, and a report on the availability of an egress point behind the fire hall, and whether or not that can be used for special events, so we don't have everybody coming out the same direction. So that's what I'll be seeking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we don't have any items to move to in camera or deal with any items from closed session. Now moving to item number 19, I have a Molson. I would like a Molson.
It's too
It's 11
early in
a.m.
the day.
It's 10:57.
12 o'clock somewhere. Guilty as charged. So moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand, be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time passed, being bylaw number 56-2023, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council for the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 20th day of September 2023.
So all those in favor? Again, that's unanimous, that's carried. And it is 10:58, so it's not 11 o'clock, so you'll have to wait. I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I'll have to tell my friend Dave Zazella that Molson is now the official beer